There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the game wisdom zone. So, besides that obvious little twist at the end, that is a quote from the original intro to The Twilight Zone, one of my all-time favorite shows, and I think something that still holds up to this day. And it's something I always think about when it comes to today's topic. Are video games timeless? Can a video game have that quality to it that keeps it relevant, or keeps it worthwhile to revisit time after time, year after year? And of course, from the quote, as timeless as infinity kind of applies here. And yes, we're getting philosophical for today's critical thought. And longtime fans of Game Wisdom probably know what my answer is going to be, but try not to spoil it, at least for the new folks watching. But as you know, we've been playing a lot of classic games on the channel, as well as modern ones as well. And as we do our retro plays, we've looked at the gambit of titles, from Family Dog, The Simpsons, to Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, Super Metroid, games along those lines. And this is a topic that definitely delves into the discussion about game preservation, and again about the artistry when it comes to video games. As we've said in many previous lessons or previous videos, there is this opinion that video games are just commodities or simple consumable goods that once the next one is out, you throw away or you trade or you get rid of the old one. And that very cynical take can unfortunately be seen when we talk about a lot of AAA games. Why do you play Call of Duty World War I when World War II is out? Why do you play Battlefield 4 when 5? Battlefront to Battlefront 2, and pick any big name or massive successful franchise. Each new sequel brings iteration and refinement, and it makes the previous one obsolete. As I'm writing my book talking about the history and design of platformers, we saw something similar with the jump from 2D to 3D design. Why should you make a 2D game when 3D was the new hotness? Why should you go back to a 2D platformer when you have Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and so on and so forth? And again, for a lot of people, they don't really think about game design at this level. Again, looking at video games simply as a product to be consumed and gotten rid of. But as we've said, when it comes to the games that do truly stand out, there is that sense of timelessness surrounding them, whether it is from an aesthetic point of view, gameplay, or just everything combined into one unique experience. One of the first Super Nintendo games we played here on stream was Super Mario World, and that game continues to be a source of inspiration and design for many developers, especially for people making Kaizo games to this very day, and probably even beyond that. But the point for today is that when we look at video games and what makes them timeless, it's definitely about titles that go beyond just what everybody else is doing. Again, when it came to the platformer genre, there were many, and I do mean many, pretenders to the throne when it came to it. Some of them stood out in their own unique ways. Metroid, Castlevania, even some of the weirder ones that we play, like Felix the Cat. But then we had all the ones that weren't that well. These Simpsons ones. Insert LJN game here. And etc, etc. And like we've said before, when it comes to the topic of game preservation and backwards compatibility, that we have to treat every game in terms of preserving history. Not just the big name ones. When we last spoke about this, I talked about my issues when it came to the whole virtual console, the classic kind of line we've been seeing these days. That, yes, it's great to see, 10 to 15 games being made available from Super Nintendo. But really, it's going to be the same 15 games because everybody's going to pick the number ones. Again, you're not going to release a compilation of SNES games and not include Super Mario World or Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. And the PlayStation one was just this very weird potluck of games that just seemed like Sony was just trying to grab whatever titles they could get access to with no rhyme or reason surrounding it. And that's kind of the point when we talk about this, that really great games do transcend the time that they were made. When we played Super Mario Bros., the original one on stream, it still, from a design perspective, is good. Now, does it have the same features and quality as Super Mario Odyssey? Definitely no. But it still is a great game in terms of level design and progression curve that can be studied to this day. Taking this back to the Twilight Zone, one of the reasons why I still love that series is that it dealt with a lot of topics that are very humanistic. Issues such as paranoia, the obsession with beauty, the fear of the government completely controlling our lives. And these are stories and topics that, again, they are timeless. Again, the pursuit of, that perfection when it comes to beauty is as much felt as it was in 1960 as it's being felt this year. And again, I'm using this year in case you're watching this a year or so or even beyond that from when this is being recorded. But those kinds of tales can still be told and they can still be felt. And that's why I always found the Twilight Zone to be one of the better anthology shows. And one of the reasons why I don't like as much Black Mirror. But that's a topic for certainly another video. But we're going to switch into some game footage as I go stepping into the Twilight Zone. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what to keep track of or pay attention to in terms of older games. In terms of how they continue to hold up, or if they don't, in the modern market. But, like I said, here's our quick word to our Patreon backers. Thank you to our Patreon backers, and if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, check out our Discord channel, linked down below. Alright, so as you can probably guess by this footage, this is from Super Mario Bros. 3. And SMB3 is a very interesting title in terms of Nintendo's development and growth of the Mario franchise. This is technically the first original game following Super Mario Bros. 1. As you all know, the second game was considered more or less a direct sequel to that design. And number 3 here presents a lot of unique elements to it that we never really saw beyond this title. From the use of these various suits, such as Tanuki right here, to the variety in terms of environmental and world design. Once Mario leaves the pipe here, you'll see that we're in the Giant World, or World 4, where you'll run into these various larger elements, such as that cloud there, the piranha plant, etc. And this is something that, again, when it comes to iterating on design and the evolution, you see developers experiment in weird and sometimes polarizing ways. Another example would be Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, that forsaken the original game's formula for more of this open world or open adventure style. Now, did it work perfectly? No. But it presents a very weird kind of, pit stop in terms of the evolution of the franchise. And again, it's something that we still talk about to this day. Getting back to our original point regarding timelessness, games like Mario Bros. 3, Legend of Zelda, and so on, they have design to them that is unique to itself. It's something that, again, we either don't see all that much anymore, or it was literally a one and done. Another example would be the game Blaster Master for the NES. And this is the very weird thing about these kinds of discussions, that the games that we talk about, like SMB3, Mario World, and many more, their unique elements, we sometimes just never see them again. In my book, 20 Essential Games, I talked about Star Control 2 as a game that is very timeless in terms of its design and its legacy among fans of that franchise. And again, when you're building games like this, you're never really knowing what is going to stand out like this. When I spoke with Paul and Fred about Star Control 2, they had no idea that they were going to create one of the most recognizable games on the PC, and a game that people still want to play to this day. And when it comes to designing games like this and paying attention to what makes them stand out, you have to look beyond essentially the marketing or the sales of the game. Again, great games like Mario, like XCOM, Final Fantasy, etc., they're going to earn a lot of money. Again, Kingdom Hearts, I think just in news I just heard, sold like 5 million copies already. But you want to pay attention to unique factors in games. And in our previous video when I talked about studying game design, I said you gotta play the weird and the bad games as well. Because sometimes a bad game is just a title that, well, tried to do something a little different and it didn't work. And sometimes in that very weird sense, you can have a bad game become timeless like that. Again, people still talk about very weird titles to this day. I'm trying to think of a few really quickly off the top of my head. You can look at stuff like what Angry Video Game Nerd does when they do their retrospective pieces. And while his style is definitely a little bit more, anger filled there, that doesn't make it any less memorable for trying out these old games and experimenting with their designs. Now, to begin to wrap things up for this talk, video games, like I've said, are certainly have that element of timelessness to them. Whether they are really great ones like Mario Bros. 3 here, to the weird ones, to the horrible ones. But it's important for people to understand why these games are timeless. Whether it's because the game design is so good that nobody else either managed to compete or even dare to compete. Was it so different that nobody else has done anything exactly like it? Or was it just something that was so weird or off-putting that it would be commercially crazy to try and put something out like that? And while we examine these games and we talk about them from a marketing standpoint, again, the games that do hold up for one way or the other, it's never sadly guaranteed that they're going to become massive hits. We've gotten lucky with some of those titles, such as The Binding of Isaac, Doom 2016, Prey, and so on. But it's oftentimes that the games that hold the most artistic value are sometimes not the best in terms of commercial value. And that is a topic for certainly another time. When it comes to these kinds of games, the question I want to pose to everyone watching is, can you think of games that have truly stood the test of time in terms of their game design? And I'm talking about games that are 15 to 20 plus years old. And I want to hear from you, why should someone study these games? Again, that are so many years old as opposed to modern titles. When I interviewed GOG, like this was like 4 or 5 years ago, I asked them why they felt that there was a market for these older and retro games. Why is someone going to buy a game like Myst, or Sacrifice, or Creatures, SimCity, and so on? And they said a really great answer. They said that for these kinds of games, that you really just don't see them being made like this anymore. And again, for good or for ill. Either again because the game was so good that nobody wanted to compete, or maybe the game was so bad that it caused so much frustration. Either way though, these games stick out and they become a part of the industry, and again, part of the art when it comes to game design. But with that said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have a topic you would like me to look at in a future one, let me know in the comments below. Once again, check out our Discord and Patreon and all that. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games in or somewhere within the realm of the Twilight Zone. If you're looking for another book about game design, be sure to check out my first title, 20 Essential Games to Study, out now. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.